Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've always dreamed of becoming a professional chef since I was a kid. I spent countless hours helping my grandmother in her small restaurant in a small town in Michigan, learning the basics of cooking and falling in love with the culinary arts. After graduating high school, I worked 2 jobs for 3 years to save up enough money to attend one of the most prestigious culinary schools in the country. Now I'm in my final year, and let me tell you, this school is no joke. The standards are incredibly high, and that includes our appearance. We have to wear pristine white uniforms to every class, which is honestly a nightmare because cooking is messy business. There's only about a 1% chance you'll get through a class without getting something on your uniform. Most of us go through about 4 uniforms a week, and you're lucky if you can make one last 2 days. So there I was, having just finished an intensive sauce making class where I got splattered with tomato sauce. It was my last clean uniform, which meant it was definitely laundry day. I gathered all my other dirty clothes too, since I might as well do everything at once. I headed down to the laundry room on the ground floor, relieved to see 2 washers still available. The other 4 were already running. I started separating my uniforms from my regular clothes. You have to be super careful with the whites to prevent any color bleeding. The available washers weren't next to each other, but that was fine. I was loading my uniforms into one of the washers when I heard someone express their shock behind me. I turned around to see 2 girls standing by the door. One was holding what looked like a single set of workout clothes. Our campus was in the middle of relocating students from the older dorms to our newer building, so I didn't recognize either of them. When I asked if I could help them, the girl holding the workout clothes demanded to know why I was using both washers, insisting there was no way I had that much laundry. I explained that I was in the culinary program and had to separate my uniforms to prevent discoloration, adding that the washers were quite small. She complained that she'd been waiting all day to wash her clothes, emphasizing that she needed to work and this was her favorite workout outfit. I apologized but stood my ground, explaining that my instructors would dock my grade for being unhygienic if I didn't wash my uniforms. Her friend tried to reason with her, suggesting they return in an hour, but the girl refused. She demanded I remove my uniforms from the washer. I refused and turned to start the washer with my regular clothes. What happened next was absolutely insane. This girl walked over to the washer with my uniforms, yanked open the door and grabbed my detergent-covered uniforms. Then she actually threw them into the trash bin where we empty the lint traps. She shoved her workout clothes into the washer, started it, and gave me this smug look like she'd just won an Olympic medal. When I protested about my uniforms, she smugly replied that she had tried asking nicely, but since I wouldn't comply, she had taken care of it herself. She then told me condescendingly that I could try again in about an hour. I was about to completely lose it when our residential advisor showed up. Turns out the girl's friend had quietly slipped away during our argument to get help. The residential advisor took statements from me and the friend, then escorted the entitled girl to the head of residential housing. Fortunately, another student had just finished their load and offered me their washer. The friend actually stayed and helped me retrieve my uniforms from the trash. She apologized profusely for her friend's behavior while helping me reload everything. The story doesn't end there though. The head of residential housing took this incident very seriously. Not only did the entitled girl get 48 hours of community service, but she was also required to pay for professional cleaning of all my uniforms and was put on behavioral probation. Her friend stopped hanging out with her after that, probably tired of dealing with her entitled attitude. She ended up requesting a transfer back to the old dorms because people in this building are too uptight about laundry room etiquette. I still see her friend around sometimes. She's actually pretty cool, and we grab coffee occasionally. She told me this wasn't the first time her former friend had pulled something like this, but it was definitely the last straw for their friendship. I've been a swimming instructor for about 5 years now, specializing in teaching toddlers and young children. I love my job at this upscale fitness complex. It's got everything from an Olympic-sized pool to specialized therapy sections. The facility is amazing. I've built quite a reputation for being patient with kids who are afraid of water. One incident stands out that still makes my blood boil whenever I think about it. It happened during one of my regular classes with 5 toddlers, including the son of a local business mogul who owns several supermarket chains in our area. Our pool has these jets that people love using for therapy, but there's a strict rule that they must be turned off during swimming lessons. It's clearly stated everywhere, on membership agreements, on the switch itself, and on entry cards. Usually, people are understanding about this. That day, as I walked in with my group of toddlers, including the businessman's son on my hip, I noticed this woman, let's call her Karen, lounging in the pool. When I turned off the jets, you'd think I had personally insulted her ancestors. Karen immediately started yelling at me, demanding to know why I'd turned off the jets she was using. I explained that I couldn't legally teach with them on and pointed out that this was clearly stated in the membership agreement and on the switch. This only made her more angry. She started ranting about how much the jets helped her, insisting that I turn them back on immediately. She then started splashing water at the toddlers, who were in the shallow section. When I asked her to calm down because there were young children present, she became even more enraged. She screamed about how the jets were miracle workers and that I had no right to turn them off. When I warned her that we'd have to call the police if she didn't stop, she became completely unhinged. She started demanding to know if I knew who she was, and then accused me of being a pedophile, claiming all the children were actually mine and that I was just pretending to teach them to swim as a cover-up. At this point, I needed backup. I left the kids with my young helper, a 10-year-old girl who often assists during lessons, and took the businessman's son with me to get his father from the second floor. What happened next still horrifies me. While I was gone, Karen completely lost it. She started flashing the children, ranting about how if she couldn't feel comfortable with her jets, she'd feel comfortable in other ways. Then she did the unthinkable. She grabbed my young helper and dragged her into the deep therapy section where the poor girl couldn't touch the bottom. One parent jumped in to rescue my helper, while another called the police. The young girl had to be put on a breathing apparatus when the paramedics arrived, but thankfully she recovered fully. Karen then put on quite a show, thrashing around and screaming about being brutally injured when the parent rescued my helper. When the paramedic asked if she was okay, she suddenly stood up straight in the pool and pouted like a child. When I returned with the businessman and his son, Karen spotted me and walked over. She slapped me across the face while ranting about how my supposedly entitled and rude kid had tried to drown her, describing herself as a physically incapable old lady. Fortunately, the police saw everything from the moment she got out of the pool. I confronted her then, laying out how she had violated the jet policy that was clearly stated multiple times in her membership agreement, on the switch, and on her entry card. I also pointed out that we had seen everything from the second floor, and called her out for trying to drown my helper because the girl had ignored her outrageous behavior. The police investigation revealed Karen didn't even have a membership or any authorization to be in the facility. She was charged with trespassing, harassment, 2 counts of public indecency, attempted murder, child endangerment, and assault. They also found drugs in her possession. The judge wasn't amused. She got house arrest, 200 hours of community service, specifically banned from working with children, food, or water, and a lengthy probation period. The businessman later donated money to install better security measures at the facility, and my young helper received a lifetime membership as compensation. Karen tried to argue that picking up litter counted as helping the ocean to get around her water-related service ban, but the judge shut that down real quick. After graduating with a business degree and struggling to find work in the city, I decided to move back to my hometown. The cellular store had been a fixture in our community for years, and when the previous manager retired, the owner, who knew my family, offered me the position. It wasn't my dream job, but I took pride in running the store efficiently and treating our customers fairly. This incident happened about 3 years into my tenure. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and I was working alone since my other staff member had called in sick. Around 4 p.m., this middle-aged man walked in with an air of self-importance that immediately set off warning bells. I greeted him with our standard welcome, and he immediately told me that he used to have service with us but had switched to another carrier. He admitted it was a big mistake and said he wanted to come back. It seemed like a simple enough request, and I started pulling up his old account in our system. That's when the complications began. He mentioned that he wanted to keep his phone numbers. I explained that it was doable but would require a port request from his current carrier. That's when he dropped the bomb. He told me it needed to be done today because it was his last day of the trial period with them. He explained that if it wasn't done today, they would charge him a huge cancellation fee. I felt my stomach sink. I'd dealt with enough port requests to know this wasn't going to end well. I carefully explained to him that the porting process could take anywhere from a few hours to a couple of days. I told him we could submit the request, but he would need to contact his current carrier to expedite the approval. He said their store was just down the street and that he would go there now and come back. He left his old phones on my desk and hurried out. I put a sticky note on them with his information and continued helping other customers. At 5:40 p.m., 20 minutes after closing, I was in the back room when I heard tapping on the front door. Having dealt with after-hours customers before, I knew better than to acknowledge it. I finished closing up and went home. That's when things got weird. At 7:30 p.m., my mom called. She told me that the customer from the store had called them looking for me. She said he was demanding that they get me to go back to the store right now. I told her absolutely not and instructed her not to give him my number either. I reminded her that I had told him our closing time multiple times. The next morning, I got a call from the store owner. He explained that some guy had called him the night before trying to get someone to open the store after hours. He asked me what was going on. Before I could finish explaining, guess who stormed in? His face was red with rage. I greeted him with my standard customer service greeting, asking what I could do for him. He snapped back saying I knew exactly what this was about. He accused me of being there the previous night and ignoring him. I told him that he had left his phones yesterday and that I could help him now if he wanted to finish the activation. He exploded, yelling that I had cost him $700 in cancellation fees and that I was supposed to help him. I explained that the cancellation fees were his responsibility. I pointed out that he had the option to give up his phone numbers and cancel immediately. I also reminded him that he had recently gone through the porting process when he switched away from us, so he should have known how long it takes. He tried to pull rank then, demanding to know if I knew who he was and claiming friendship with my family. That's when I'd had enough. I stood up straight, looked him directly in the eyes, and delivered a clear message. I explained that our business hours were not negotiable, that harassing my family and the store owner after hours was completely unacceptable, and that he was no longer welcome in this store ever. I finished by suggesting he consider the cancellation fees as the price of learning that he wasn't as important as he thought he was. He just stood there with his jaw dropped, trying and failing to form words. Finally, he stormed toward the door, knocking over a display stand in the process. I called after him, informing him that he would be receiving a bill for any damaged merchandise. The store owner, who had been watching from the back, came out laughing and gave me a high five. We ended up adding a new policy. Any customer who harasses staff after hours is permanently banned. That guy tried to come back a few months later, but one look from me sent him running. After 20 years of working in corporate finance, I finally decided to take a break. The constant pressure, endless meetings, and office politics had taken their toll. I needed something different, something real. That's how I found myself on this tiny island in the South Pacific. I'd read about it in a travel blog, a place where time moves slower and people still know their neighbors' names. I've been here for 3 weeks now, staying in a modest beachfront bungalow. It's not luxurious, but it has everything I need: a comfortable bed, a small kitchen, and a view that makes me question why I spent so many years staring at spreadsheets. The local community has been incredibly welcoming, and I've made friends with several of the tour operators who help keep the island's tourism industry running. One of these friends, a tour driver, often invites me to the island's famous fish fry events. These gatherings are held on a clifftop overlooking the ocean, where local cooks prepare fresh fish while traditional singers and dancers perform. It's become my favorite evening activity, a perfect blend of good food, culture, and community. Last night, my friend called to invite me to another fish fry event. He suggested I should come along, and I eagerly accepted, asking him to save me a spot. He assured me he always did, and we agreed to meet at 7. When I arrived, we found a table with a few other tourists and settled in. That's when she appeared. A woman who would soon prove that Paradise isn't immune to entitled behavior. She asked if the seat was taken, and we welcomed her to join us. She hadn't even fully sat down before starting her tirade. She immediately began complaining about her accommodation, criticizing everything from misaligned bathroom tiles to the humming sound of the air conditioning. When I tried to explain that it was a small island with simpler amenities, she cut me off to complain about the tour bus, specifically mentioning her disappointment about the seats not being leather, given what she had paid. When the food arrived, beautiful local salads, and perfectly fried fish, she found her next target. She loudly called over my friend and his co-worker, demanding to know why she hadn't been catered for as a gluten-free guest. When my friend apologized and explained that they hadn't been told about any dietary requirements, she insisted that she shouldn't have to tell them, claiming it was basic customer service. My friend, ever patient, spoke with the cook who kindly prepared some fish without batter, but apparently that wasn't good enough either. She announced that she didn't even like fish. When I pointed out that the tour was literally called Fish Fry, she dismissed it as irrelevant. When my friend brought me a bottle of wine, I'd helped him move some furniture last weekend, her eyes narrowed. She accused us of discrimination because she had to pay for her drinks while I got free wine. I tried to keep the peace by pouring her a cup, but she immediately complained about both the plastic cup and the fact that it was Chardonnay instead of sweet wine. The complaints continued as local children played nearby. She grumbled about there being too many children, insisting this was supposed to be a tourist experience, not a playground. During the traditional songs, she complained about not understanding the words, suggesting they should sing in English instead. When only 4 dancers performed, she accused them of false advertising, referring to the brochure mentioning 80 dancers in the troupe. The final straw came with the cutlery situation. She expressed outrage at being given a plastic fork and having to clear her own plates. As she prepared to leave for her next tour, a nighttime activity that required darkness, she launched into her final complaint about the late starting time of 8 p.m. When my friend explained they needed darkness for the activity and couldn't control when the sun sets, she threatened to write a review about all of this. That's when I'd had enough. I stood up, drawing everyone's attention, and delivered a speech about how this island wasn't a theme park and these people weren't servants. I explained how they were sharing their home, culture, and traditions with us. I pointed out that the children she complained about belonged to the staff working to give her this experience, and the songs she couldn't understand were in a language spoken here for generations. I finished by telling her that if she wanted a 5-star resort with formal table service and everything catered to her exact preferences, she should have gone somewhere else, because this place was perfect exactly as it is. The table fell silent. Other tourists started clapping and several local staff members smiled appreciatively. Karen's face turned red, and she stormed off toward her night tour, but not before my friend, the tour driver, had the final word. He politely told her that due to safety concerns, they couldn't accommodate anyone in an agitated state on the night tour, offering a refund instead. When she stomped away, presumably to write her scathing review, the local singer started another traditional song. The children continued playing, the waves kept crashing against the cliffs, and the island remained exactly what it was meant to be. A perfect slice of paradise, plastic forks and all. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.